Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I'm a mom of 2 toddlers, a small business owner, and an avid reader and writer. I wanted to start a YouTube channel where I could share how I romanticize my life and talk for hours and hours about my favorite books. The truth is that life is really hard, especially as someone with chronic illnesses and as a parent. It's really common to just live in this constant state of burnout and always rushing to do the next thing and busyness, and just let life kind of drag you around and you're just along for the ride. And I'm really passionate about creating a life that is special every single day, and a huge way that I do that is through reading. But my story actually begins with burnout. Becoming a mother at a young age has been a really special part of my life, and I love my kids so much. But as anybody who's a parent knows, it's often difficult to keep up with our hobbies when we become a parent. Along with that, I've also suffered from chronic illnesses for my entire life, starting when I was a child. My earliest symptoms were my repeated injuries as a young child, and I actually broke like 7 bones by the time I was 7 years old. And after that, I played soccer, and I would always get injured constantly. And I was told that I had a really low pain tolerance and that I just didn't handle injuries well. But the truth was that I was getting hurt very frequently, and this led to me quitting all of my sports when I was 11. From there, I started having joint dislocations, specifically my knees, at age 12. And since then, my symptoms of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome has just continued to increase, culminating in pregnancy, when all of those lovely pregnancy hormones that our bodies use to prepare us for pregnancy and birth really exaggerated my symptoms to where they became extremely debilitating. Especially in my second pregnancy, I started showing very severe symptoms of POTS syndrome. Now, I'm doing a lot better than I did during my second pregnancy, and my youngest is now 2.5 years old. And I'm really grateful to be feeling better, but I'm still living in a state of constant pain and fatigue and struggling with POTS on a daily basis, to where it makes it difficult just to do normal everyday things like dishes or laundry. And I'm really dependent on my husband for a lot of those things that require you to stand up or bend over, which is most things in life and in motherhood. I also own a small photography business here where I live in the DFW area. I am a newborn portrait photographer, and I absolutely love my job. However, it is really difficult on my body, and the last few years I've really just overworked myself with too lofty of ambitions and expecting too much of my body, and it was physically really difficult for me, and more importantly than that, it was very difficult for me mentally. And last year I reached a state of total burnout in business and in life and in work and in motherhood, just feeling so completely overwhelmed by everything that I had to do and everything that was in front of me, that I just felt stuck. I felt like there was nothing left in life to just enjoy. And with the guidance of my amazing therapist, I realized that I needed to reintroduce some of my favorite hobbies back into my life. And my number one favorite hobby before marriage and children was reading and writing. I realized that I hadn't read a single fiction novel in years. I think it was probably 3 or 4 years since I had picked up a writing project or a book to read, and I really missed it. So next up, I had to break my years-long reading slump, and what better way to do that than with some fluffy contemporary romance. The last time that I had been reading books, I was still a child, and so I hadn't ventured into the world of romance at all. I mostly read like young adult fantasy and a lot of classics, and I really loved like adventure-themed YA novels. Now, as an adult trying to get back into reading, contemporary romance was just like, ah, yes, this is easy to read, it's fun, it's engaging, they're quick reads, and so that's where I started. The very first book that I picked up was from a recommendation from Darling Desi, who is my favorite YouTuber. And I really wanted to read a book that fit the season, that fit the mood that I was in, and this was last June. So I was looking for books that were like summery and give you all of nostalgic summer feels. And the first book that I picked up was Every Summer After, which I loved. It was so good and I enjoyed it so much. I went on to read lots of different summery contemporary romances, and it was just so much fun. The next one I read was The Summer of Broken Rules, which was also great. I loved it, and I loved the family dynamics in that one were so fun and so sweet, and I just adored it. And then I found The World of Sarah Adams. Oh, I love her books so much. When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect were two of my top reads for the first half of the year. Those two books actually inspired me to get back into my own writing projects, which is super, super fun. And I started a contemporary romance work in progress, which is still a work in progress, but it really rekindled my excitement for storytelling. All the ideas in my head that I used to have just kind of came back, and it was so exciting and so fun. And then, I discovered the world of romantasy, and I became obsessed. And the very first romantasy book that I read was actually Fourth Wing, and it was so fun. Such a change of pace from my contemporary romance, and I enjoyed it so much. I picked it up expecting it to be like very overhyped, and I'm the kind of reader, I don't really care about literary perfection, and I'm not a literary critic. I like to read what makes me happy and like what's fun. And the number one thing that I consider when rating a book is, could I put it down and did I have fun the whole time? And Fourth Wing was one of those ones. I just could not put it down. I kept reading and reading, and it was just a good time from start to finish. This was in October of last year, of 2023, and Iron Flame's release date was set for November 7th. And so I got to hop on the bandwagon, on the train of everybody waiting and anticipating Iron Flame, and that was so fun. And along that journey, I found a podcast called the Fantasy Fangirls Podcast, and I absolutely loved it. They do deep dives on all of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, and leading up to Iron Flame, it was just so exciting to follow along with other people who were anticipating the new release. And then of course to immediately read the new release as soon as possible. And then in November, after finishing Iron Flame, I was looking for a book that would give me the same kind of feels, because obviously I was in a huge slump after reading those. Like nothing hit the same after reading Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. And I had to wait a whole nother year plus, and we don't even know the release date of book 3 of the Empyrean series. So I was looking for books with a similar feel, and I have been hearing about ACOTAR for years. And the girls at Fantasy Fangirls almost started with the ACOTAR series, and so they would mention it in passing, and I was like, well, you know what, if most people who like Fourth Wing also like ACOTAR, I should try ACOTAR. And so I picked up all the books from my library, and I just dove right in November. I had a very typical experience with ACOTAR. The first book, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. It's a little bit slow. Then the very last section of the first book, and if you've read it, you know what part I'm talking about. And I was just hooked. I was so drawn into the story. I could not put it down. And then the rest kind of unfolded from there. And as you might have guessed, A Court of Mist and Fury is one of my top favorite books of all time now. Because I loved ACOTAR so much, I knew that the next place I had to go was Throne of Glass. And this was a big endeavor for me. I had not read a long series since I was a kid, and it was really intimidating, 8 books and thousands and thousands of pages. It's an incredibly long series, and so I was a little bit nervous to start something that big, but I ended up devouring them, and I read that entire series in 1 week. It was insane, and I definitely stayed up too late, way too many completely sleepless nights. I just could not put it down. I enjoyed it so much. From there, it has developed into a complete obsession. I am obsessed with romantasy, and I think I found my favorite genre. I have just continued to love reading and really had that joy relighted in me. So that brings me to, how do I even make time to read now as a mom and a business owner and someone with chronic illness? And here's how I do it. The number one thing I did, especially in the very beginning, was I would take whichever book I was reading and my phone, and when I would set my phone down, I would set it on top of my book, so that anytime that I would go to reach for my phone, I would see my book and I would pick that up instead. Doing that really helped me to gather up all those little bits of time in the day where I did have time for reading, and to really enjoy them reading the book that I was currently invested in. The second thing that has really helped me with staying consistent with reading is giving myself permission to DNF. I used to have a really hard time not finishing any book. It bothered me a lot, and it felt very lazy to just put down a book because I wasn't feeling it. But this time, getting back into reading, I gave myself permission to DNF books as often as I wanted to, and for any reason. So my number one rule when I'm reading is, if I can still put it down without thinking about it by 50 pages, then I DNF. It has to capture my attention by the time I hit 50 pages, or else it's not worth finishing for me. And I really want to be spending my time reading books that I'm really enjoying. This way I have DNF'd a lot more books this year than I would have before, but I've enjoyed reading so much more. Along with that is mood reading. I am a mood reader, and this year I've let myself really embrace that, with specifically enjoying seasonal reads that fit the current season that we're in. I also am a binge reader, so I like to read a lot for a long time and then go a couple of weeks without picking up a book. And just giving myself permission to read when I felt like reading and not to make it a chore has really helped keep the joy in this hobby. Some of the places that I find time to read are in the car when I'm not driving, or when I am driving in audiobook format. I listen to audiobooks all the time on my headphones while I'm at home with the kids and they're doing another activity. I read a lot during nap time, and I love to read before bed. I just have to be very careful that if I'm going to read before bed, I am okay to finish whichever book I'm in, because I tend to get really sucked into it and stay up way too late. Getting back into reading has done so much just for my joy as a mom and as my own person. It's inspired me to write again with my contemporary work in progress, and also to start a romantasy project, which has been so fun, and just getting to be creative in that way is so life-giving to me. It's also made me so excited about fashion again. I love cottagecore and fantasycore fashion. I have been practicing giving myself permission to dress a little weird and to enjoy it, and to use what I wear as an expression of the things that I love and the things that make me happy. Reading also brings so much joy to my mundane days. As a mom who stays at home and a business owner, I'm busy a lot of the time, and a lot of my days look the same. It's waking up at the same time and doing the same thing. And reading has the power to transport you to a whole nother world, which makes every day just a little bit more interesting and fun. Reading has also really revived my imagination, which has made it so much more fun and so much easier to do things like playing with my kids and just daydreaming while looking out the window and thinking about fantastical things when I'm out on a walk. I'm able to embrace my inner child and just imagine things. And the other thing it's done for me is maybe created a little bit of a problem, because I'm completely addicted and I can't stop. So you can consider this your formal invitation to join me on my journey of rediscovering my inner child through reading and writing and all things romantasy. If this sounds like something that you would enjoy, please hit subscribe to follow along. You can also like this video and comment below to tell me your favorite romantasy read, and I'll add it to my TBR. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!